What's up everybody, Teancum here with Sew Yeah Quilting. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you make a reusable lunch sack. Let's get started. As you can see in front of me, I've already gone ahead and pre-cut down my fabric. All three of these pieces are the exact same size, which is 11 inches wide and 28 inches long. This right here is called PUL fabric. Essentially, it's a waterproof fabric, which is great for linings of bags and for, especially in this case, for the lunch sack. Then I've got right here is Insul Bright to keep things hot or cold, and then my outside portion of my bag. We can pick whatever color, whatever style we like. Also, I've got a couple of strips here that are 2 inches by 11 inches. This is to bind our lunch sack. So to start, what we're going to do is I'm going to open up my Insul Bright here. And I'm going to put one layer down. I'm going to put my print down right on top. I'm going to use a couple wonder clips just to hold everything in place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to put this PUL fabric on the back side. Take out my wonder clip and I'm going to re-clip it just to keep everything together. Now that I have this pinned together, I'm going to just set this aside and we're going to work on our trim or our binding here. So like I said, I've got a couple pieces that are 2 inches by 11, and we're going to do the tri-fold. So we're going to fold this into itself on both edges. And we're going to iron this down flat so it look just like this. Then we're going to fold it over one more time and iron it down so it's a very, very thin strip. I've gone ahead and made 2 of these. It's now time to put these onto our lunch sack. I'm going to bring this back into the camera. And what we're going to do is we're going to open this back up and we're going to lay it right underneath our lunch sack here. Right in the middle, and then we're going to fold over the other edge. This will be our binding here. I'm going to take my wonder clips. I'm going to clip this all the way down. That way it's not going to move on me when I start sewing. Now that I got this side all the way clipped up, I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to do the exact same thing on to the other side. I'm going to open this up halfway. I'm going to slide it right into the little crease. And then I'm going to clip it down. Now that I've got everything pinned together, I'm going to sew on this binding with about a 1/8 inch seam all the way down. That way it'll grab both the front and the back and it's going to come out perfect. So I'm going to take it over to the machine now. You want to just take your time here, make sure you ease everything in. I'm going to go ahead and do it to the other side. So now that my binding's sewn on, what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half with the PUL on the inside. And you want to make sure that our batting and everything stays towards the bottom. So I'm going to just ease everything out there. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam down both sides. And we're going to end up putting a French seam in this. That way we can't actually see our seams inside the bag. So I'm going to take this over to the machine and sew that 1/4 inch all the way down. same step on the other side. So now that we've sewn our 1/4 inch seam all the way down, it's time to flip this bag inside out. So I'm going to fold this inside out. And we're going to make sure that we poke out the edges and get everything real straight. So now what our next step is like I said, put in a French seam. What we're going to do is sew 1/2 inch from our side over. This will encase our seam inside of itself. So let me show you. I'm going to bring it back over to our sewing machine. And on my sewing machine I have a 1/2 inch line, which this helps a lot for this. So I've got my first 1/2 inch seam. Now I'm going to move on to the other side and get my other 1/2 inch seam sewn. So what I want to do now is to make a 2 inch box seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my hand in this and I'm going to turn it the other direction, like so. I want to make sure it lines up with each other pretty well. And what I'm going to do is sew 2 inches away, or 2 inches from the very tip of this point, which would give us a 2 inch box seam. I'm going to move this over to our sewing machine. And I'm going to just sew and make sure you backstitch. And now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm going to take this, fold it, make sure it's all lining up real nice, and sew that 2 inch seam. And now it's time to flip our bag right side out. So I'm going to stuff those in and pull my bag through, or my sack through. And the little flaps at the bottom should just lay flat on the bottom of the sack. Take your time to make sure all your points are pushed out. And I got a couple extra threads here that I'm going to clip off. So now, what I've got here is a little piece of fabric that I did the same thing, a tri-fold. It was about 1 inch when I started by 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches. And I did my tri-fold like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this up underneath my binding strip. And so I'm going to just take out a couple stitches to make sure I can get it dead center. I'm going to slide this up into my binding stitch, and then I'm going to sew it down. So all I've done is took my seam ripper, I just opened up that seam maybe 1/4 inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little strand that I've got here, I'm going to slide it up into the hole in the seam. I'm going to use my seam ripper here to get it up tight. I'll take my other side and do the same thing. And then I'm going to want to do a double or triple stitch here to make sure that's locked into place. So I'm going to take it to my sewing machine. Now from here it's time to add the button. What I've got here is a recycled button, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the top over. maybe a 2-inch fold, and then I'm going to pull down my loop. That way I know where my button should go. Then I'm going to just put my button where I think it's going to go, and we're going to sew this button on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hand sew my button on real quick. You can sew it on with your sewing machine or whatever way you like to sew on buttons, but we'll be right back. Now that we've sewn our button on, this lunch sack is complete. This is a super fun project to make, and it makes it custom for any of our kids or grandchildren. If you liked this video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and don't be afraid to share it with your friends. As always, we're going to leave instructions on how to make this in the description below. My name's Teancum, teaching you how to sew like a pro. We'll see you here next week at Sew Yeah Quilting.